Come on in. We're going to talk about the Diddy trial today. I was in the courtroom today for the Diddy trial. I have a notebook full of observations and thoughts, and I am ready to share all of them with you all. So come on in. Let's talk about it. I know y'all have questions, and I am ready to talk about it. I did everything. In addition to listening to all the testimony, I also did a little sketch of the jury box just so I could keep up with who was there and who was where. So we'll talk about all of this, but come on in and let's talk about this Diddy trial and um, what happened today. There was a lot of drama in the courtroom today. Lots of drama. And the witnesses today probably were not considered major witnesses, but Cassie's best friend was one of the witnesses today. And I would say he was a major witness. He confirmed some things for the prosecution. And today I could see how the prosecution's case is coming together, how the Diddy case is coming together. So come on in, let's talk about it. I will share my thoughts with you. I will share, just some of the facts, not even my opinions so much. I do have some opinions, but I want to share what I observed, what I saw in the courtroom. And from the moment Diddy walked in, it was interesting because Diddy and I had a little interaction when he walked into the courtroom. I did not expect that. It was very surprising, but it happened. So come on in, let's talk about it. Please give me some taps here so other people can find this live. So if you tap the screen, that allows other people to, the hearts will allow other people to find the live, and please share it so we can talk about this because I know this is the information y'all want to hear. What happened in the Diddy courtroom today. So y'all let me know if you have any questions. I am ready to spill the tea, as they say, but this is not tea. This is not gossip. These are facts. I was in the courtroom today. So I'm going to talk about what I saw. So y'all come on in. Thank you for the follows. Please give me some follows. And if you are here so that you can find this live in the future, and please tap the screen so the algorithm will push this live out. And thank you for the follow. So, and I am going to start talking about what I saw in the courtroom today. And I will answer your questions along the way, but I think the best thing for me to do is start with what I actually saw, observed, and I'm going to start from the beginning. So Diddy came into the courtroom, and let me just set the scene. So I'm in the courtroom, and I'm talking with an attorney who's also in the courtroom. And the two of us were laughing. We're kind of talking and laughing about something. And Diddy walks in, and we see Diddy, and she says to me, "Wow, he looks different." Thank you for that. He says he looks different. And I look up, and I'm looking at him because he does look different. He looks very different. And he starts smiling at me, and he gives me a wave. And then he does this, the little heart thing. And I'm a little confused, and I wave back. And the girl, I just met her today, the other attorney, and she says, "Do you know Diddy?" And I'm like, "No, I don't know him." but I think he may have seen us laughing, kind of smiling with each other when he was coming into the courtroom. And then we were looking at him. So he may have thought we were like friendly faces. And that's why he started smiling at me and waving. But it was kind of weird. And I also got the impression that he thinks everyone is on his side, that the people who were there for the trial, like, we're spectators for this trial. I got the feeling that Diddy may have thought that all the spectators, that we were there for him, because the way he was doing the little heart thing, I thought it was just kind of amusing. And then it was really funny because the people around me are like, "Do you know Diddy?" And I'm like, "No, I don't know him." But that was what happened, as he walked into the room. So that was an interesting moment to see that happen. He does look very different. He looks older. I mean, just no way around it. His hair is all gray. You know how some people, when their hair goes gray, they look distinguished? He doesn't look distinguished. He looks old. He looks, I mean, there's just no way. He looks old. In fact, I said to the person sitting next to me, I was like, wow, he looks like he's somebody's grandfather. And he's gained some weight in the middle. And that's what he said. So it was just kind of interesting to see him and see how much he's changed. So when court started, and he looks like, I said he looked like somebody's grandfather. He had on a blue sweater and a white shirt, and he looked like an old man. So when court started this morning, it started with the issue of a motion to strike. Somebody said no Botox. Yeah, that's right. No Botox, and definitely no hair dye. Definitely no hair dye. But we started this morning with the judge taking up a motion to strike that had been filed by the defense. So the defense filed a motion to strike part of Kid Cudi's testimony from last week. Kid Cudi had said during his testimony that he thought Diddy was lying about the arson, about setting his Porsche on fire. Hey, Big Mike, thank you. So Rachel's asking, what is a motion to strike? So a motion to strike is when you ask the judge to delete certain testimony. So the judge would tell the jurors, we have stricken that testimony, erase it from your memory. You are not to take it into consideration in the future. And they thought that Kid Cudi's testimony about the arson was so important that it should be stricken from the record, because he said during his testimony, oh, thank you for that. Thank you. What he said during his testimony was that he thought Diddy was lying about the arson. So there were arguments back and forth about that motion to strike. And one of the points that the judge made, and which he would make a few other times during the day, is that the defense must make their motions, their objections, when the testimony is being given. He basically said, you can't come back to me after the person has testified and file an objection. He's like, that's not how it works. You have to make your objection in the moment, or you waive your objection. And I have a theory about why they're doing this, why they're coming back after the fact and making objections. And my theory is that they have appellate counsel. So sometimes you will have an attorney whose only job is that they look for issues that can be appealed. So all they do is they are either in the courtroom or they're reviewing the transcript, and all they're doing is trying to find issues that can be appealed. And if you don't object to something, you can't appeal it. So I have a feeling that they have appellate counsel, and appellate counsel is saying, oh, you should have objected to this, or you should object to that. That's just my theory. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's my theory. But the judge told them today, if you have an objection, make the objection in the moment. Don't come back to me making these objections. So the judge denied their motion to strike. And then we went on to this other issue that took up quite a bit of time in the courtroom. So, and it was about the testimony that was going to be heard later on in the day from Cassie's best friend. And you all, I'm just going to remind y'all, please keep tapping, and please keep sharing the live, and please follow me if you don't already follow me. So I was in the courtroom today, and I'm just going over what I heard and what I observed and what I think. But I'm trying not to give too much opinion about what I think about this trial. I'm really trying to stick to what I heard, what I saw. But, you know, I'm human. I can't help but give my opinions. But Cassie's best friend was scheduled to testify today, and he did testify. And oh, my God, what he had to say. Ooh, wait. But I'm going to go in chronological order. So in anticipation of his testimony, the defense was saying, we don't want him to testify about certain things. And one of the things they did not want him to testify about was Cassie saying to him that she didn't want to have sex with other men, but she was doing it because Diddy wanted her to. So the defense was saying her friend, Dante Nash, he should not be able to testify about that. And the government was arguing that this was a prior consistent statement. And so the judge and the defense had filed a motion saying, no, this is not how a prior consistent statement works. You can't have a third person, you know, another person saying this is what that person said. That's not proper. And the judge was agreeing with them. So the judge was agreeing with the defense that he should not be able to testify that Cassie told him that Diddy wanted her to have sex, but she didn't want to, but she did it because of him. And right, it is hearsay. I see someone is saying it's hearsay. Yes, it's classic hearsay because it's an out of court statement being offered for the truth of the statement. But there are exceptions to hearsay. And so the government was arguing that this is an exception. So the defense is saying, no, your argument is wrong. This is not a prior consistent statement, and it shouldn't come in. And so the judge was agreeing with the defense and was about to rule in their favor. But then the judge said to the prosecution, maybe this can come in as a present sense impression. So it was, I felt like he was throwing them about. I'm pretty sure the judge brought it up first. And as soon as the judge brought it up, it was like, yeah. It can come in as a present sense exception, impression. So that exception to the hearsay rule says when someone is in a situation that's when someone is in the moment in a situation that's stressful, and something is happening, and they make a statement, that statement can come in as that person's impression of what was happening at the time. And so that's how the judge said, on that basis, I'm going to let this statement in. So I'm going to let it come in. So we went through all of that. And you'll see later on when I tell you about the best friend's testimony, why this is so important. And guys, please give me a follow. Please continue with the likes. Please continue sharing. So yes, someone is saying there seems to be a lot of hearsay in this case. The judge even made a statement. He didn't make it today, but someone referenced it today, that this case is about gossip. The judge said that. So that the judge has said this case is about gossip. So that tells you a lot about what's going on here. But so the judge, hi Tracy, how are you? So we're talking about the Diddy case. I was in the courtroom today. If you have any questions, let me know. Just put it in the chat. So so the judge said, I'm going to let that statement in. So then we go on to the first witness. And let's see. So we go on to the first witness. And the first witness is an LAPD officer. And this officer is the person who reported to the scene when Scott Kid Cudi's house was broken into. So they received the call. You know, he was a patrol officer and he still is. And he responded to the scene. And so somebody's asking if the defense has a witness list also. Yes, they absolutely do. It will be at least 6 weeks before they get to their witness list, but they do. Thank you, Joseph. I'm glad you're enjoying this. Thank you for the gift. Thank you for the gift. Brownie, I'm going to get to that whole thing about the DNA because there was some fireworks when that witness testified. There was even a motion for a mistrial. I mean, these aren't even major witnesses, really, but it was like major drama, it felt like, in the courtroom today. So the first person to testify is this police officer, and I'm looking at my notes here. So the police officer, he said that on December 22nd, 2011, he's working. They get this call about possible suspects at a scene. No, Obama is not going to show up as a witness. But so they get this call about possible suspects at a scene. So they respond to this house in Hollywood Hills. And apparently this is a pretty rich area. And they respond to this residential house. And in court, they showed pictures of the house. They showed pictures of the walls, of the gates and all of that. So one of the officers climbs over the gate and lets his partner inside. So the officer who testified said that he noticed a dark black Cadillac Escalade outside of the house. But he didn't see the passengers because the windows were tinted, but he wrote down the license plate number. So, okay. So, the government's theory is that Diddy was the one in this house. I mean, was the one at Cootie's house, and that he broke into the house. So the police officer says he noticed this car, this black Escalade, but he didn't try to stop it. He didn't try to, intervene. He said that things were moving quickly, so he didn't try to stop it, but he memorized the license plate number. And he said it was parked in front of the residence when they pulled up. So the Escalade leaves. They go inside. They get inside the residence, inside the courtyard. They go to the front door. The front door is open. It's unlocked. So they just he turned the handle. The door is open. So they go inside the house. And somebody's asking, was that legal to climb over the gate? Yes. They thought a crime was in progress. Remember, they had received a call that somebody was breaking into the house, or, suspects were on the scene. So under those circumstances, yes, it was legal because they thought some type of crime was in progress. So they go inside the house. And so first of all, they look around to make sure, nobody was there who could hurt them. And the government, So they examine the inside of the house. No one's there. Then they go outside and they exited, and he sees the Escalade again. He sees it a second time. It's the same Escalade, and it's going down a hill. And y'all remember this, because when it comes to cross-examination, this is going to be important. And thank you all for the hearts. Please keep tapping the screen. I appreciate it. And please follow me if you don't follow me. Somebody just asked, were his children in the courtroom? Yes, they didn't arrive on time, but the 3 boys were there today along with his mom. And I'll tell y'all about that as we go along. So the police officer sees the same Escalade again. Again, he doesn't try to stop the Escalade. But he sees it. He made note of the license plate. Now he checks the license plate number. He runs the plate, and he finds out that the owner of the vehicle is Bad Boy Productions. So he has placed Diddy's vehicle at the scene of this alleged crime. Now, at some point, Kid Cudi, he shows up. And they go in the house. He looks around, and he's like, there's nothing out of place. And there's a report. So Kid Cudi says there's nothing appears to be stolen. Nothing appears to be out of place. The house wasn't trashed. So the police officers, they decide, okay, they're going to report this as a possible trespass because it didn't appear that anything was stolen. Right. So Young Prince is saying there was no crime. That's why they called it trespass. Right. So they couldn't find anything unusual or out of place. So they reported it as a trespass. They asked him about the presents. The presents, apparently, they were told that by the owner, Kid Cudi, that the presents weren't out of place. That the things that were there was the way he had left them. The door, he didn't say the door lock was damaged. He said they turned the handle and the door opened. He didn't say anything looked unusual. And remember, they wrote a report about this. So, Tally, I always get the name wrong. Cudi. I can't get it right in my head because I want to say Cudi, but I know that's not correct. So y'all just ignore it. ignore that part. So anyways, so they do a trespass report. They run the plates, and it's Bad Boy Productions. So that's kind of the end of that. But Brian still cross-examined him, and he did a really good job. Because remember, Capricorn Clark had just testified earlier, a few days ago, that there was a car chase, that the Cadillac was chasing Kid Cudi's Porsche. So, remember she testified to this car chase? So in a way, they're trying to discredit her, what she said in her testimony about what happened. And so Brian Steele started out by asking him, now, do you remember this case? Now, remember, this was back in 2012 that this happened. He's like, this happened 13 years ago. Do you remember this case? And the officer is like, no, I don't remember this case, but I have my report. And Brian Steele says, well, that's the reason you have your report, right? So if you have to be asked a question 13 years later, you'll have the report because you don't remember what happened. And so the officer is like, yeah, that's what my report is for. And so Brian Steele is asking him, did you see a black Porsche when you arrived? Did you see it around the Escalade? And the officer says, I don't remember that. And it's not in his report. He's like, I don't remember. And Brian still says, but you didn't put it in your report, right? So Brian still asked him, did you see a car chase? Don't remember that. Did anyone tell you a gun was involved? The officer says, nope, don't remember that. Did anybody tell you a kidnapping was going on? The officer says, nope, don't remember that. So none of that is in the report. And it was interesting how the officer answered the questions, because he could have simply said, no, that's not part of my report. That didn't happen. But instead, he said, I don't remember it. And when people say, I don't remember it, to me, they kind of leave the door open to, well, maybe it happened. I just don't recall it. And that's how he was testifying. And Brian still was, pressing the point, you didn't put this in your report 13 years ago. And Marshmallow, I'm going to talk about whether I think he's going to be found guilty based on what I observed today. But anyway, so Brian still kind of pressed the point. You didn't put this stuff in your report. No gun, no kidnapping, no car chase. And you didn't put it in there because it didn't happen. So let me see. I'm going through my notes here. And so he also asked him, were you told that the homeowner was in the house? So all of this is that he's trying to discredit the previous testimony from Capricorn Clark about Kid Cootie about what had happened. So, and I thought he did a pretty good job. He also pointed out no property was disturbed in the house. The house looked organized, and that's why he called it a trespass. And the homeowner, Kid Cootie, didn't report anything stolen. And also, he asked him about security cameras. So apparently, there were security cameras at the property. And he asked him, why didn't you mention the security cameras in your report? But the officer said he saw the cameras, and he asked Mascuti for surveillance footage, but they didn't really follow up as to whether anything was ever produced. So I guess it was not Cootie, Kid Cootie. Thank you for reminding me. So before Brian Steele finished his cross-examination, he walked over to Diddy. He leaned over, and they were kind of whispering with each other. And Diddy was saying something to him, and they kind of went back and forth. And then after he consulted with Diddy, he went back to the lectern, and he wants to clarify the time that all of this happened. And then that was the last question. So, and I thought Brian Steele did a good job with his cross-examination. He was pretty succinct. He was to the point. He had specific points that he wanted to make, and he got those points out, and he sat down. Hi, Cowgirl Cree, and hi, Hayes. I've missed y'all. It's good to see y'all. So he made his points and he sat down. Now, one of the things I noticed about Brian Steele versus the U.S. attorney who was questioning the police officer, the U.S. attorney, she had all of her questions written out. You could kind of tell by the way she was asking the questions and looking at her paper that all of her questions were written out. Brian Steele, he had a file, but he kind of opened it and then he would close it. He didn't have questions written out, but his questions were very organized. So I thought he did a really good job. Kid Cootie, thank y'all. Y'all keep putting it in there because I swear I'm gonna forget in two seconds. So that was the end of that officer's testimony. They didn't have any redirect for him. So the next person who testified, now y'all confusing me. Cuddy, not Cuddy. Cuddy. How about I say Muscooty? I think that's his real name. That's his full name. So, anyways, the next person who testified was an arson investigator for the LA Fire Department. And they qualified him, the government called him, and they qualified him as an expert. And so he had like 15 years of arson investigations. He had done hundreds of investigations before, that kind of stuff. So, he was somebody who they presented as knowing what he's talking about, as, having a lot of experience. So he, talked about how he got there. He saw that the top of the Porsche had been cut, and that it was obviously a Molotov cocktail that had been made. Yeah, guess what kind of bottle? Y'all may have heard this already, but the type of bottle that they use for the Molotov cocktail. Anybody know? Have y'all heard that already? Anybody know? It was a 40-ounce bottle of Old English 800. That's right, Old English. Who drinks Old English? Who drinks not Ciroc? Who drinks Old English? Does that sound like Diddy? Y'all think Diddy drinks Old English? Huh? Yeah, just let me know. Just put in the comments yes or no to Old English. Y'all think Diddy drinks Old English? Well, that's what it was. It was a bottle of Old English. He found a lighter, and he found a handkerchief that he said appeared to be an expensive or fancy handkerchief. So that's what he found in the car. That's what he put in his report. They had pictures of the vehicle and the damages to the Porsche. You could see how the roof had been slashed, and you could see how particularly on the driver's side, the door was burnt and was damaged, and you could see there was pretty bad fire damage inside the vehicle, but it didn't actually burn to the ground. He said that he's seen cars where it would burn to the ground. And so the government starts to ask him about taking DNA from the scene. So the government is saying, was DNA collected? And he said, yes, there was DNA collected. It was found on the Old English 800 bottle. And there was also gasoline inside that bottle. So they collected DNA. They also collected fingerprints. And so they sent the DNA to a company to test. And the DNA came back with a partial hit, or a partial match is how they phrased it. And so this DNA, what they knew about the DNA is that it was a female's DNA. On the scarf, there was no DNA. On the lighter that they found, there was no DNA. But on that bottle, there's female DNA. So you have the Old English 800 female DNA on the bottle. You have a fancy handkerchief, and you have a lighter. And they collected the fingerprints. So when Kid Cudi, when the break-in happened at his house back in December, he had someone come out and take fingerprints from the door and from a glass in his house. So he had fingerprints. he gave those fingerprints to the police officer. So the police officer takes the fingerprints Kid Cudi has, and he also takes the fingerprints that they found on the scene, and they put those into evidence. So this becomes really important because the government starts asking him questions about the fingerprints. And so 2 fingerprints were recovered from the Porsche. That's what he said. But I think it was the bottle. If I'm not mistaken, it was the bottle. And in August, so remember, this happens in January of 2012. In August of 2012, someone at the LA Police Department destroys the fingerprints. And this is the testimony. So the testimony is that somebody in August, he discovers in August of 2012 that somebody destroyed the fingerprints. And so the government is asking these questions. And let me say it, I wrote down one of the questions, one of the exact questions they asked. And I want y'all to tell me what you think. So these are some of the exact questions that the government asked. Did this strike you as unusual that the fingerprints were destroyed? Were the 2 fingerprints cards, did you authorize them to be destroyed? Did anyone on your team authorize the fingerprints to be destroyed? Detective, in your 15 years, has evidence been destroyed by someone who was not a member of your team? Finally, we have an objection. But y'all tell me, what do y'all think about those questions? Yes, live life. They were insinuating that Diddy did something with those fingerprints. I mean, to me, it was clear as day. I'm sitting there and I'm listening to these questions and I'm like, ooh, what are they saying what I think they're saying? Are they saying that Diddy somehow tampered with those fingerprints? It was like, it wasn't subtle. It was very obvious that that's where they were going. So finally, but they asked quite a few. They asked about 3 questions before the defense objected. So finally, the defense attorney, he finally objects, and he objects to the first question, and it's sustained. Then the government asked another question about the fingerprints, and he's like, Judge, can we have a sidebar? So the sidebars, you can't hear what the parties are saying. So we don't know what was said during the sidebar. But then the judge says, let's take a break. So we take a break. And during that break, when the jurors leave the room, then there's a discussion in the and we come back and there's a discussion about these fingerprints, and the defense is livid. They are saying this is absolutely outrageous that the government would suggest, would imply, would give the inference that Diddy destroyed or somehow did something to these fingerprints. So they are upset. And I think, rightly so, because that is what it sounded like. It sounded, somebody's asking how I remember all this. I have so many notes. I was taking copious notes. That's why I remember it. So it's not my memory. Somebody said I'm talking too slow. Ma'am, I talk slow. I'm sorry. I just talk slow, and ain't nothing you can do to speed it up here. But anyway, so the defense is all upset, And the judge says, well, I don't think anybody would think that. I don't think anybody would think that's what they were trying to imply, that Diddy had something to do with it. And I'm sitting there thinking, I asked the person sitting next to me, who's an attorney also, I'm like, "Is- isn't that what you were thinking?" And she said, yeah. Then I turned to the guy who on the other side of me, and I was like, is that what you were thinking? He's like, yeah. So the judge said, he didn't think that was a reasonable inference, but I think most of I know people around me thought it was a reasonable inference. In the Cole Otoro 375, I'm just telling you what happened. That's all I'm doing. I am 100% not saying I'm on Diddy's side, but I am a lawyer, and I do absolutely believe every person has a right to a defense. And I believe that criminal defendants are presumed innocent until they are guilty. So that's my position. I'm just telling you what happened. So after, and this is what the government said. The government said, we were just asking these questions because we anticipate the defense is going to say the LA police department did something to just purposely destroy the fingerprints. That's why we're asking these questions. So that was the government's position. So finally, the government starts to say, well, finally, the defense says, we have a motion. And so one of the, I think Ms. Shapiro, Attorney Shapiro, she stands up. She's like, Judge, I hate to do this, but this is such an important issue. We are moving for a mistrial. And she goes on to say that during jury selections, you heard the jurors say that this is such that they believe that Diddy could use his money to influence this case to buy his way out of this. And this is such an important issue. And now they've come and given the jurors the impression that Diddy had something to do with these fingerprints disappearing. You've got to dismiss this case. You've got to declare mistrial. And so, of course, the judge was like, now listen, I know y'all might be upset, but y'all not getting a mistrial. But I will give you a curative instruction. Important. I don't think that it's that big of a deal. So I give you a curative instruction. So now they start fussing about what the curative instruction should be. And so the defense says, okay, Judge, we have an instruction that we want you to give them. And this is the instruction that they proposed. They said, instruct the jury that questions about destruction of fingerprint cards was improper and the testimony was not relevant. Well, of course, the government is not going to agree to that. I see y'all saying he probably did it. You know what? I had a discussion with somebody in the courtroom who was like, "What's wrong with that? What's wrong with them asking those questions?" But think of it like this: you're putting that out there without any evidence. I mean, like zero evidence, none whatsoever. And so that it's very improper that you would suggest this, imply this without laying any type of foundation, without having any type of evidence. So that's a problem. So the defense wanted the judge to tell the jury that what the government had done was improper. So of course the government, their attorneys were like, "Oh no, you cannot say what we did was improper. That would prejudice us. That would make the jurors think we don't know what we're doing or that we're doing something inappropriate." So the judge finally was like, "Yeah, I'm not going to say it was improper, but I'm going to give you your instruction. It's just not going to be that one because it would be prejudicial to the government if I were to say that what they did was improper." So this is eventually what they came up with. This is the instruction. So the instruction was, members of the jury, regarding the evidence you heard regarding the destruction of fingerprint cards and the answers given, They are irrelevant to this case and the defendant and are to be disregarded. So that was what they finally came up with. So after that, they kind of the government kind of wrapped up the I'm trying to think. Yeah, I'm trying to read my notes here and remember owner the Porsche, just drivers. Oh yeah, so they asked the investigator, who did you interview? Because remember, we got that female DNA. And so um hold on one second. Okay, yeah. So they asked him who he interviewed. He said, I interviewed the owner of the Porsche, Mascuti. I interviewed his driver, Igor. I interviewed his personal assistant, and I attempted to reach the suspect, but he didn't name who the suspect was. So I'm assuming it was Diddy, but he wasn't allowed to say the name. And then he said, I tried to reach a female named Capricorn, and I tried to reach Cassie Ventura. He said he called Cassie. He couldn't reach her. He called her a couple of times. He said he tried through a family member to get in reach with her. And it turns out Cassie's father is a firefighter. And he said he tried to reach Capricorn. He did not speak to her. He made multiple phone calls. And he got into an argument with Capricorn's brother on the phone. Capricorn's brother told him Capricorn had nothing to say. She didn't want to be involved with this. So that was what so that was his direct testimony. Then we had cross-examination. And I thought the cross-examination went pretty well. And so was Mark Agnafilo, who cross-examined the firefighter. And so he started off the bat talking about the glass bottle with the partial print that was a female DNA. So he started right off the bat talking about that. And I was watching the jurors, and the jurors were paying very close attention to this testimony. Two jurors in particular, to me, seem to pay more attention to the defense. I mean, yeah, to me, they look like when the defense was cross-examining, they seem to really be looking, taking notes. It just seems like they were paying more attention. There were at least three jurors who to me it appeared they didn't give a damn about Diddy. One of them never looked Diddy's way. He never looked towards the defense table. I mean, it was like this man was turned. So if the defense is over here, this man was turned like this the entire time. It was like, I'm not going to acknowledge you. I'm not going to look at you. I'm not going to give you the time of day. So anyways, so the cross-examination of the firefighter starts, and of course they hone in on there was female DNA on the bottle. Why didn't you pursue female suspects? And the firefighter said, well, I tried to reach them, but they wouldn't call me back. And they talked about the timing of the DNA report, because the defense was trying to say, you called the Cassie and Ventura after you learned there was female DNA on the bottle. And thank you all for the gifts. I appreciate it. And thank you all for the taps. Please keep tapping. And please keep sharing this live. And if you don't follow me, please give me a follow. I will be going to the trial tomorrow also. So I'll be letting y'all know again tomorrow what happened. And I got a bunch of videos I have to make about what I saw and observed today. But But let's keep talking. So Agnifilio is talking about the DNA, how they didn't follow up. But then he pulls out a picture of the vehicle and he says to the firefighter, "What do you see in this picture?" And the firefighter is like, "Oh, I see, I see that it's burnt, and uh, I see that the car was burnt, and he's saying that kind of stuff." And Mark Agnafilo says, "What's that black thing on the back seat?" And Yolanda, yes, the DNA was on the bottle, but he's showing this picture. He's like, "What's that black thing that's on the back seat?" And so the firefighter says, "It's a glove." And I'm looking because they've shown these pictures like at least like 4 or 5 times already. And I'm looking and I'm like, that is a glove. That's a glove. The prosecution had said nothing about the glove. Thank you, Hayes, for the Go Popular. Thank you. Prosecution said not one word about this glove. And so Diddy's attorney says, "Why didn't you put the glove on the report?" And the firefighter says, "Because it wasn't relevant." And his attorney is like, "It wasn't relevant. It's in the car of the vehicle that has just been set on fire, and you think it's not relevant?" And he says, "No, it wasn't relevant because the owner of the car told me the glove belonged to him." And Agnifilio is like, "Where's that in this report? This report from 12 years ago. This report is 12 years old. And you're telling me you remember from 12 years ago that this person told you that one glove was his glove." And then he says, "Well, where's the other glove? And what was the glove for?" And he said that Mascuti told him that the glove was a driving glove. And he's like, "Okay, it's a driving glove. Where's the other glove? Where's the second one?" And he's like, "Well, the owner of the vehicle says it was his glove, so we didn't think it was relevant." Then he asks, "Did he have two Porsches? Did he have two cars, two Porsche?" And the firefighter said, "Yes, he did, but that wasn't relevant either." And so he asked, "Well, where's the other Porsche?" And so there's a picture that they took of the other Porsche. It was inside the garage. And so the impression that I got is that they were trying to say that someone took that glove that ended up in the car that was burned from the other vehicle. And when they were lighting the Molotov cocktail, they used the glove so they wouldn't burn their hand. And so he actually asked the firefighter, "If you set the bottle on fire, it's going to be hot, right? You're going to be close to flames. And, you may want a glove to protect yourself." And so the firefighter, the fire investigator, he kind of was like, "Oh, no, maybe," that kind of stuff. But I thought they did a good job of kind of showing that the investigation was not as complete as it could have been. Um, so and of course they didn't check the glove for DNA. And that's obviously a big deal because um they could have found something on it. Yep, Tally, the firefighter was like, "Yeah, just the top would be, hot." And Mark Agnifilio was like, "Well, wouldn't there be fire inside the glass?" But he tried to it my impression was that he was trying to minimize the importance of the glove. So that was my impression. Because he said he didn't think a single glove on the back seat was relevant and wasn't sent for any type of testing or anything like that. And I wrote this down in my notes. "Did you think it was a possibility the person holding the Molotov cocktail would be wearing gloves. And he said, possibly. He said, possibly. And Agnifilio said the hand would be close to the flame. And he said, possibly. And then they went on to talk about the two Porsches. One was in the garage. And, the investigator was like, that stuff is not relevant. And so Agnifilio also noted that there was nothing in his report about when he tried to reach Cassie Ventura. It doesn't say he left her messages. He didn't document anything, and he couldn't say when he spoke to her. He says he spoke to Capricorn's brother, but again, nothing was documented. And then before he sat down, he went over and Agnifilio, he went over to Diddy. He consulted with Diddy. They had a little conversation. After that, he had like one other question from the investigator, and then that was the end of his testimony. So I thought they did a good job with the police officer and with Diddy. Then we had Dante Nash, Cassie's best friend. So he testified. And he was the showstopper for the day. Somebody asked, is the cop black or white? He was Hispanic. He was a Hispanic person. Let me see. I'm looking at your questions. Sheila said, I guess you're talking about Diddy paid someone to do his dirty work. Nicole, that looks old. Says it sounds like I'm on Diddy's side. I'm not on Diddy's side. I'm just telling y'all what I heard, what I observed. And, I'm just telling you my interpretation of the evidence, but I'm certainly not saying I'm on Diddy's side. I'm just saying this is what the interpretation, this is what I heard and all of that. The officer's testimony corroborated with Capricorn's testimony that when they got there, they took off. Sort of, yeah. I think she was saying there was some kind of chase, and it didn't corroborate that part. I thought Dante was the stylist. Yes, Dante Nash. The celebrity stylist, please, Dave Virgo 81, please get that right. He was a celebrity stylist, and that becomes important. I'll tell you later on why that's important. But he also says he is Cassie's best friend. They asked, when was the last time you talked to Cassie? It was yesterday when she had her baby. He said that in court. They talk every day. He said they're best friends. He said, they're best friends. It sounds, and he said he testified that between 2009 and 2018, they talked, he was with Cassie every day. So let me tell you about his testimony, because he starts right off the bat being very sassy. And he was asked, were you subpoenaed to be here? He said, yes, I was subpoenaed to be here. I do not want to testify. I do not want to be here. So he made that clear from the jump. But I'll tell you, listening to his testimony, he sounded very credible. I mean, the guy, and he was, reluctant. He didn't want to be there. He sounded 100% credible. But he expressed that he did not want to testify. Bella Wim, thank you so much. Hold on one second. TikTok is making me. Hold on. Okay, so I'm sorry about that. TikTok makes you do a little puzzle to prove that you're still here. So anyways, he has worked with Cassie and Combs since 2008. He responded to a Craigslist ad in New York, and that's how he started working for Bad Boy Entertainment. And he said that it was obvious that Diddy and Cassie were a couple. Everybody knew that. Thank you, Rochelle, for the gift. Thank you so much. Oh, I'm at 100,000. Thank you all so much for all the hearts. I appreciate it. I haven't been at 100,000 very often, so I appreciate that. So y'all keep tapping. Let's break a new record here. And please keep sharing. And if you don't follow me, please give me a follow. I appreciate it. Most of my content is about legal stuff, Supreme Court cases, high profile trials that are going on, that kind of stuff. And of course, the Diddy trial. So anyway, she said that he and Cassie were very close. They spent almost every day together. So the prosecution said, what names did Diddy have for Cassie? He says, baby girl, CC, Cass, bitch, slut, hoe. And, I mean, of course, the topic, what we're talking about, is not funny. It's very heavy, but the way he was saying it was amusing because he started out saying like, "Oh, he calls her these sweet names, baby, CC, Cassie, bitch, bitch, slut, hoe," and so he was asked, okay, like when he would call her bitch, what were the circumstances? He said sometimes he was just calm, sometimes he was irate. The way he presented it, he was calling her out of her name just because, for no reason. I mean, it was like that's just how he treated her. He just treated her very poorly. And so it just sounded like he had no respect for Cassie at all. And when he was asked, well, how would Cassie react? And he said Cassie would be sad. Sometimes she'd cry. Sometimes she's going to a depression. Thank you all for the follows, and thank you all for continuing to tap. Please keep sharing the live. And then he was asked, did you ever hear him threaten Cassie? He said yes. He would threaten to beat her ass. He would threaten not to put out her music. He told her he would have her parents fired, that he would send her sex tapes to her family, to her parents' job, and that he put out her sex tapes. And then these things would make Cassie cry. And he said that Cassie could not go out without his permission. Okay, let me repeat that. Cassie could not go out of her house or go anywhere without Diddy's permission. And he was pretty detailed in describing these incidents. Hey, Easy, thank you. I'm here. He was pretty detailed in describing these incidents. He did a very good job. You know how I said he was funny at the beginning of his testimony? He did a really good job of like bringing life to what was happening. And that probably happened with the other witnesses also. But, he made it feel very real. He kind of put you in Cassie's position, how she was feeling when these things were happening. So, I mean, he was a very effective witness. So we're talking about Dante Nash, who is Cassie's best friend and celebrity stylist. So he said that Cassie could not go out without Diddy's permission. And so the prosecution asked him, can you describe an instance where this happened? You got to start a YouTube channel. Hey, Jerry, and girl, I just started one. Like literally, I'm live over here and I'm live on YouTube, but there's nobody. There's 1,800 people over here. There's 0 people on my YouTube live. So if anybody is on YouTube, y'all go over to YouTube and watch my live because I'm live on both. Um, but so the prosecution said, tell me about some instances where he didn't give her, allow her to go out. So he said in 2013, Diddy, no, I'm sorry, Dante, Rita Ora, and Cassie, they went to a gay club. And while they're at this club, Cassie received a call from Diddy. And Diddy told her she better bring her ass to his house. And then he called back and he told Dante, y'all wilding out. Y'all wilding out. And he said, every time that you go out, Dante, that bitch wants to go out with you. So he's talking about Cassie. So, so that was the first instance that he described. And then they asked, well, what did Cassie do? And he said, Cassie went home, she packed her stuff, and she went to his house. And you know, that was, I mean, and it just felt really heavy the way he described it. You know, it just felt really heavy. And then he said that he had to send all photos of Cassie outfits to Diddy, to Puff. He called him Puff. He said that he had to send all photos of Cassie outfits to Puff, and he would pick which ones he liked and she would wear. He said in 2014 there was a Vanity Fair party, and it was an Oscars after party. And he went with Cassie, and Puff was there. Puffy was at the party, but Dante went with Cassie. He said as soon as Cassie walked through the door, here comes Puff, Puffy. Excuse me. As soon as Cassie walked through the door, here comes Puffy. I thought I told you to not to wear your hair like that. I thought I told you to wear your hair up. So her hair was down. Dante said Cassie looked gorgeous. She looked beautiful with her hair down. And Puffy was like, I told you to wear your hair up. And he grabbed Dante by his hair and lifted him up. And then he grabbed Cassie by her hair and dragged her to the bathroom. And so it was Derek Roche, Puff, and Cassie went to the bathroom, and Dante was trying to find hairpins so they could put her hair up. They went to the bathroom, and when she came out, her hair was up. And Diddy was like, didn't I tell you this would look better? So that was an incident in 2014. Now, what I thought about when I heard that was that what I thought about, Carolina said he didn't have hair. I'm not sure what that means. Didn't he admit at the end that the hair looked better up? Yeah, he did. I mean, he kind of said, yeah, you know, I think he did. But does that matter? Does that matter that it looks better at the end? If I decide I want to wear my hair down, don't I have the right to wear my hair down? I mean, I can't make that decision, even if you think it looks better a different way. So, I mean, I think that's the point, not whether it looked better once she did it the way he wanted it done. But anyways, I digress. Let me get back to the notes. Dante didn't have hair. Puff grabbed his neck. What I wrote down is he grabbed Dante by his jacket and lifted him up. That's what I wrote. So next, Dante started talking about when he would go to the studio with Cassie to record music. According to him, he could have been her executive producer. I think he actually said that. He said he helped her pick songs for the mixtape, and that she released the mixtape Rockabye Baby, and that year that was the number one mixtape. Now, who remembers that? Who remembers that? Are you one of the lawyers in the courtroom? Becca Sizemore. I am a lawyer and I was in the courtroom today. Yes. There was a lawyer who was sitting right next to me also. Um, but do y'all remember the mixtape? According to Dante, it was the number one mixtape for the year. And the government asked, well, what happened to the mixtape? And Dante says it was never released as a record. And he was asked about how often he saw Cassie recording music. And he said often. Now, a lot of his testimony, he would say often, a lot, that kind of stuff. He wasn't specific as to, like numbers a lot of times. But yeah, but he said she went to the studio a lot. And so he said that near the end of her relationship with Puffy, she was going to the studio all the time. And he said she recorded hundreds of songs during their relationship. And he said, he was asked, well, how many of those songs were released? And he said, maybe only 10%. And he said, that's being generous. That's 10% is being very generous. So let's see. So I think we went to lunch and then we came back. He talked about how Diddy had said, if Cassie keeps having a smart ass mouth, her music would never come out. So y'all, now, so let's just talk for a second because hopefully y'all can see what's happening here. So the government has this RICO charge, and they have to prove a lot of elements for RICO. They got to prove that the enterprise, the big boy records were involved, that employees helped in the RICO conspiracy. They got to show coercion. And with this witness, Dante, you could really see how all of it was falling together. I made a video probably 2 weeks ago where I said, from what I had heard so far, it did not sound like the government was doing a good job approving the RICO. But with this witness, you could definitely see how it was kind of falling into place. How they were doing a pretty good job. It was falling into place. So the government then started asking him about instances where Diddy was violent with Cassie. And he said he saw 2 or 3 instances when that happened. But as he testified, I heard more than 2 or 3. So he said that one instance, there's a witness who's called Mia. And Mia is her pseudonym. So she's anonymous. We don't know who she is, but she's supposed to testify tomorrow, I hope. So she may be on the stand tomorrow. So, of course, when people see her, they're going to know who she is. Some like Dwayne and Rico, can't they only jail the top guy and give immunity to other criminals? They can. I mean, they can always charge other people also. But yeah, they can give other people immunity so that they will participate. Hey, Cowgirl Cree, thank you for coming over here. Okay, yes. Can you get back in tomorrow, Michael Lawless? I think these are some of my TikTok people who are over on YouTube. Thank you. So I have the same name over on YouTube. So if you want to find me over there, so I'm just kind of starting up on YouTube. Yes, I am going back tomorrow. So y'all, I am actually paying somebody to stand in line for me. So he got there at 6:30 this afternoon to stand in line, and he will be there until 6:30 in the morning. And someone is asking, can Mia's identity be leaked? Yes. There is nothing to prevent any of the public who are in the courtroom tomorrow. They see Mia and say, oh, that's Jane Doe. And then come out and report that that's Jane Doe. So there's nothing to prevent that. So, um, so they started asking him about the violence, and y'all, this gets really, I mean, what he described is horrible. I can't imagine what it was like in the courtroom with Cassie, because the way her friend described what happened is just, I mean, it's heartbreaking and it's horrible. Now, I'm a lawyer, so I have to put on, I keep my lawyer hat on. I'm not saying Diddy is guilty of what he's charged with. He is definitely guilty. Well, you're innocent until you've been found guilty. But it definitely sounds like this man committed a lot of domestic violence towards this woman. Now that's different from whether there was Rico and all of that. um so it's uh hold on one second. So it wouldn't be a mistrial if it's leaked. If a member of the public says it. And so the government and the defense have already agreed that if her name is accidentally said in the record, they're going to put her pseudonym. But anyways, let me tell you about this. Now, I mean, we've already heard about this actually, but she talked about the violence. I'm sorry, Dante talked about the violence. So he said Mia was present once when he witnessed Puffy be violent with Cassie. Cassie was packing to go to the Oboe Fest. It's Drake's festival in Canada. And Cassie was sleeping. And Puffy comes in. So Dante says he goes to the door and he lets Puffy in. And Cassie is sleeping. And he said and then Puffy says, bitch, didn't I tell you to answer the phone? And he grabbed Cassie by her hair and began to hit her hard. And according to Dante, Combs was in a rage. Mia, Cassie, and Dante, they ran to Cassie's bedroom. But Puffy pushed through the door, and he kicked Cassie, who was on the floor. So, hey, Jerian, thanks for coming over. Lawless, I have a story to tell about what happened in line this morning. So I'm going to tell it in just a second. So Dante jumped on Puffy's back to try to prevent him to stop him from hitting Cassie. And Puffy threw him off his back. Then Mia, whoever Mia is, she jumped on his back and he threw her off. And then Cassie's head hit the edge of the bed frame in her bedroom. And according to him, blood started gushing. He said it was a large amount of blood started gushing and coming from Cassie's head. Then Mia got towels, to try to get up the blood and stop the bleeding. And Dante started calling 911. And someone told him to hang up. They asked, was it Diddy who told you to hang up? And he said, I don't remember. I thought that was odd. I'm like, who else would say hang up? But I don't know. I don't know. So, anyways, he said someone told him to hang up. He hung up. And Puffy said he was going to take Cassie to a plastic surgeon and said D Rock would take care of her. So, did y'all see what the government just did? So, they just connected the enterprise involvement that they have to prove with the RICO. You see what they're doing? So they're showing D Rock was involved in covering up this incident with Cassie. So they're showing that employees of the enterprise were involved. So so that's how they're bringing their RICO charges together. So Dante said he saw Cassie the next day on FaceTime and she had a gash in her eyebrow. The second instance of violence that he observed, they were cooking in they were cooking in his apartment with Cassie in 2013 or 2014, and this was after the incident had happened where she cut the gash on her face. Puffy came over. He went to the bedroom with Cassie. Again, he grabbed her by her hair and said, y'all are going to get the fuck out of my house. I'm sorry, this was at Cassie's house. He said, y'all are going to get the fuck out of my house. Then he grabbed Cassie's hair. Then he popped D Rock in the back. Like, he hit him in the back of his head like that and told him to leave and go downstairs. And he pushed him out of the apartment. So when Dante, I said D Rock, but I meant Dante. When Dante got downstairs, he saw Diddy's security downstairs, and security would not let Dante leave. He said, "Wait for Puffy to come downstairs." So Puffy and Cassie came downstairs, and Cassie got in Dante's car, and Puffy started to berate her and told her to take her broke ass off. And then they left. And then Puffy starts calling her and told him, pull over. He said, pull over. So they pull over. Here comes Puffy to the side of her window. And he started to talk to Cassie. And he said she fucked up, that he was going to put her sex tapes on the internet. He was going to send them to her parents' job. And Cassie was in tears, and then they drove off. And so she said, and so he said to her, Dante said to her, girl, let him release those sex tapes. He's in the sex tapes. And that's when Cassie told him, no, the sex tapes are me with other men. Diddy is not in the sex tapes. And it sounded like that was when Dante learned, what was going on, how this was kind of going, that he was just watching. Because I'm with Dante. Hell, if he was in the tapes, I would be like, let him release him. I don't care. But that wasn't the case. He was not in the tapes. Cassie told him other guys were on the tapes. So in 2013, 2014, Cassie told Dante, and this is what the government was and the defense were arguing about earlier in the day. She said she didn't want to have sex with other guys, but Puffy wanted her to. And so the same incident is going on. Derek Rausch called and said Puffy was on the way to Dante's house. So Dante has dropped Cassie off. He had taken her to his house. And then here comes Puffy saying, I'm on my way to your house. And he takes Cassie to get a taxi so she can escape. When he gets back to his house, Puffy comes to his house with D-Rock and Derek Rausch. And then Puffy starts looking for Cassie. He looks in the closets in this man's house. Then he looks in the oven. And, and the way Dante was telling it was funny. He was like, I don't know why he looked in the oven. But yeah, he looks in the oven like Cassie is hiding in the damn oven. So I mean, he's just like I mean, the way he was being described is like he was all over the damn place. Like he was just kind of mad. He was just kind of nuts. So he looked in for Cassie. Cassie's not there. He takes Dante's phone and his keys. And wouldn't you know it, he has Dante's phone and Cassie calls. So Cassie calls. Puff realizes that she's at a hotel that they frequent a lot. A lot of the employees or something, they stayed at this hotel. And so they go to the hotel. So he makes Dante go to the hotel. He's trying to set Cassie up so he can send Dante up to her room. So they get to the hotel and Dante convinces Puff to give him his phone. They go up, they find out Cassie's room number, they go up to her room, and he goes with Tony Bias Fletcher, who was Puff's chief of staff, as well as D-Rock. So, according to Dante, when they go in the room, Cassie says, I'm going to jump off this balcony. This woman was, I mean, it sounded like she was at the end of her rope. She said, I'm going to jump off this balcony. And so everybody who's in there, the chief of staff, D-Rock, they're like, no, don't do that. We'll help you get out. So they help her sneak out of the room through a side door because she was threatening to jump off the balcony. Somebody was saying, hold on, let me go back. This is sad, but how is this relevant to a RICO charge? This is very relevant to a RICO charge, actually. This is where I could see the government's case coming together. Okay, who did he testify was in, who went upstairs to get Cassie? His chief of staff, his security person, D-Rock. Those are people who were employees of the enterprise. That's part of what the government has to prove. They have to prove that it wasn't just Diddy doing this, but it was this whole enterprise, Combs Enterprises. And that's what they're proving when they show that his chief of staff and his security people were involved in this. So that's how their case is coming together. This is how they're, this is how they're building their case. Okay, so but they go into the room and they're like, no, we're going to help you leave. They help her leave through a side door. Then by the time Dante goes downstairs, he says there's like 4 or 5 security people outside the hotel waiting. But Cassie was able to, sneak off and get away. And then Puffy was like to Dante, hey, you played me. And he starts following Dante. So Dante notices this car is following him. He turns off his lights. He starts driving real fast so that he can get away. Ace Mommy, who helped her sneak off? So it was Diddy's chief of staff. And this is and you'll see how the defense is going to try to use this. I'm going to get to that when I talk about the cross-examination. But Tony Fletcher, Bias Fletcher, and D-Rock help her sneak off. So they follow Dante. Dante loses them. Dante goes to a hotel to hide out because he doesn't want to go home. He says when he eventually goes back to his house, somebody has broken into his house and they've stolen his backpack that had his ID and some money in it. And so he was asked, how many times did you see Puffy slap Cassie? He said once in a studio parking lot. Combs he saw Combs slap her, and Combs said, "Get this bitch out of here." And that Cassie was in tears. And then there was a second time that he saw it also. I know it was 2 times. It may be later on in my notes. And then he talked about Cassie having a black eye at the premiere for Perfect Match. That's when Diddy beat her up in the Intercontinental. Airy Fairy. How was KK mentioned organizing? KK came up today. I think that's in my notes, later on in my notes. But Dante said he saw bruises on Cassie's face, her head, her legs, her neck. In 2015, they go to Vegas. And he said on that trip, he sees Cassie with 2 black eyes. And it looked pretty bad. And he says that Puffy was physically violent with him. And once was doing a video shoot for Cassie. Dante was outside smoking a cigarette by a car, and Puffy came up, threw him on the car, and started choking him. And he was like, "Y'all be wilding out." I guess he was talking about Cassie going out with him also. And then Dante says he spoke with Derek Roche and Christina Courtroom, I think that's who they call KK, about Puffy's violence with Cassie. And they said, "Okay, we're going to take care of it." And Christina said, "Okay, I'm going to talk to Puffy." And he said that he can't count the number of times that he helped Cassie hide from Puffy. And he said they would go to hotels, they go out in the country, they would do all these things to hide from Puffy. Yeah, I'm looking at y'all comments. Not all money is good money. Ain't that the truth? Hey, hello, Hayes. See, all my favorite TikTok people are over here. Was it hard to find me on YouTube? So, let me see. He said that if Cassie didn't answer the phone, Puffy would be blowing up everyone's phone trying to find her, including Christina Corman, KK. And he would say, and he would tell Cassie she needs to get back to the house. And Christina would say she was going to help with the situation, and she would calm him down. And she saw Cassie going to hotels with Puffy with sex toys. And Cassie said she didn't want to go, but she did because Combs wanted her to. And she saw Cassie. Dante said he saw Cassie taking prescription pills, Molly, cocaine, ecstasy, mushrooms. They asked him about acid, and he said he didn't know anything about acid. He talked about Cassie's 29th birthday party, how Diddy was like, "Should I throw her a surprise party?" And he was like, "Yeah, throw her a surprise party." Well, he gave her hell that night of that surprise party. Hey, Rhonda, thanks for coming. Grand Duchess, racketeering is coming together. The government's racketeering case is definitely falling together. I could see that today in the witnesses, particularly Dante. Oh, thank you. I'm over 215. Thank you, Donna. Thank you, everybody, for the taps. And please follow if you don't follow me. I appreciate it. User 980442216. Are they making a mistake with the RICO? I think they're approving the RICO. So I don't know if it's a mistake. I know it feels, it sometimes feels like they're overcharging, but today I could see how they were proving the RICO. Does the jury look different than state court? They don't look different than state court, but those jurors, I looking at those jurors and observing how they were listening to the evidence, I have some definite opinions about those jurors. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit also. But let me just tell you about this birthday party. So they went to her birthday, and he gave her hell on her 29th birthday. He wanted her to have a freak off, and she didn't want to. And so eventually he kept pressuring her, kept doing stuff, and eventually she left with him. And supposedly they had a freak off. I don't know. They talked about her drug use and how Cassie was super high and Combs was high also. And it looked like Cassie was intoxicated. Then he talked about New Year's Eve 2017. I think he said Rob Holiday was there. Puffy, Cassie, and the rest of the staff, they were all there. Puffy's room was at the end of the hallway, and Puffy told him that Cassie had been sleeping for 24 hours and Dante needed to wake her up. He said he went to Cassie and he easily woke her up. And Cassie said, "I'm tired," and that she, wanted to rest. And Diddy said to her, my light went out, y'all. And Diddy said to her, I spent all this money. You need to get your ass up. So, I mean, it's just very clear. I mean, so a lot of what Dante was saying, it sounded repetitive, but I think hearing how he was behaving with her, I mean, we're in different years now. So we've gone through, I think now we're in like 2016 or 2017. So it's like this stuff never ended. This was just his constant behavior with her. And so he wanted to do a freak off for that New Year's Eve. And Dante said that he saw a male going into Puffy's room with Cassie. Somebody's asking who is Dante. Dante is Cassie's best friend, and he's a celebrity stylist, and he was a stylist for Diddy and Cassie. And Dante was asked about his relationship with Cassie. He said it is very close today. He said he described them as being best friends. He said that he had met with the prosecution about 5 times to discuss the evidence. Do y'all think the jurors can avoid the publicity around the case? I don't know how that's even possible. I don't think so. I always wonder about that. How many hours of testimony was there today? So court started about, I wrote it down actually. I think it was about 8:45, but we started with motions. Testimony started about 9:15. Yeah, about 9:15. And we ended today at 4:00. Of course, we had a lunch break for about 45 minutes. We had some other 10, 15-minute breaks. But the judge is very good at managing this courtroom. I mean, this judge looks very young. He's 45 years old, but this man does a great job of moving the case along, dealing with objections and motions, and managing the courtroom. So let me just tell y'all, and then they also asked, have you been in touch with Diddy since 2018? And Dante said, yes, I love Diddy. That's what he said. He said, I love Diddy. He said that he has been in touch with Diddy, and he said he doesn't hate Diddy. So y'all take that and do with it whatever. Jody, I don't know. Y'all tell me, but that's what he said. He said he had affection for Diddy. Yes, I wrote down his text messages to Diddy after he stopped working for him in 2018 was loving. That's an exact quote. His messages to Diddy was loving. Okay. He said, I don't hate Diddy today. I don't hate Puff. He calls him Puff. I don't hate Puffy today. So, yeah. Okay, so cross-examination started at 2:40. Now, let me say this about the cross-examination. I've told y'all about two cross-examinations, the two police officers earlier. The defense did a great job. But this cross-examination of Dante, it was terrible. It was, it, okay, let me see how to explain this. When I say it was terrible, it was rambling, it was disorganized. The attorney dwelled on issues that he dwelled on issues without getting to his point. His cross-examination style is he wants to confirm that Dante said this. Dante, did you say Diddy kicked Cassie? Yes. Did you say that Diddy slapped Cassie? Yes. Did you say that Diddy knocked Cassie on the ground? Yes. Okay, we know all of that. All you're doing is reinforcing the prosecution's case. Why don't you tell us, what your point is? So I was not impressed with this cross-examination at all. And it was a different attorney. It was Xavier Donaldson. I mean, it just felt like he was having a hard time kind of getting his groove with cross-examination. I love cross-examinations, but sometimes it does take a moment to kind of get to the place, to kind of get in the groove of doing it. And he never got there today. But I understood what he was trying to do. So this is what he was trying to do. Number one, he was trying to establish that Cassie was treated as a celebrity with bad boy records and counter this notion that, oh, Cassie was just good for the freak offs. So he was trying to show that she was treated as a celebrity. She had a celebrity stylist. He was her celebrity stylist. So that was one of the things he was trying to show. Number two, he was trying to show that Diddy did invest money in Cassie. He talked about all the time she was in the studio, how that cost a lot of money, how the videos that Cassie did, they cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's what the attorney said. So he was showing that Diddy was investing money in Cassie. He also was trying to show that this whole thing about Diddy controlling how she looked and all of that's part of being a celebrity, that he picked out Diddy's clothes. Dante was the one picking out Diddy's clothes. So it made sense that Diddy would be picking out Cassie's clothes. That's what he was trying to say. And then there was a third thing he was trying to, but this was the biggest one that he was trying to show, that the employees, remember Rico, you got to show that the enterprise, that there were co-conspirators, that these people were part of the enterprise trying to, commit this conspiracy. The defense attorney was trying to show that these same people who were part of the conspiracy, the enterprise, they were trying to help Cassie. So he talked about D-Rock. Well, didn't D-Rock try to protect Cassie? Didn't he try to help her sneak out the room? That kind of stuff. Didn't Tony Bias Fletcher, didn't she help Cassie escape? He also said, weren't you an employee of Combs Enterprises? You were an employee, right? And you tried to help Cassie. So that's what he was, trying to show during his cross-examination. But he just did a piss poor job of doing it. His presentation was not great. The daughters were not there today. The three sons were there. Justin, Quincy, and I'm forgetting the other one, but they were there. I wrote down what time they came in because they came in late. They didn't come in when the case started. And somewhere I wrote it down. Let me see. Where did I write that? 11 o'clock. There were Christian, Justin, and Quincy. They arrived at 11 o'clock, and they all sat together. They all sat on the same row with his mom. His mom was there. She arrived late, but earlier than them. Mom arrived at 9:30. So, all right, y'all. Let me show y'all what I did for the jury box. Can y'all see this? Can y'all see that? So this is my diagram of the jury box because I wanted to be able to take notes on what I was seeing with the jurors. And Grand Duchess, you are right. They all want to circle back to Diddy. So, I mean, this man is treating you, your best friend, I mean, abusing y'all physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, and then you want to go back? I'm like, damn, man. I don't know, y'all. I mean, I don't know. I didn't understand why would Dante, be, still feeling loving towards this man. But anyways, it is what it is. So anyway, so let me tell y'all about the jurors. So I just kind of wrote a few details. So I had read the articles about the jurors who were picked, and I wanted to make sure I could match up what I had already read. And I was able, and I think I was able to do that. I was able to match it up. Remember, they talked about the juror who, I don't know why TikTok blocks these messages. I'm trying to unblock them. They talked about the juror who was a Harry Potter fan and she had 2 children. Well, that juror today had on a Gryffindor shirt. She was in a courtroom and she had a Gryffindor t-shirt on. So I was like, oh, that's the Harry Potter juror. And then when I looked at how they were seated, I could tell that was her. So let me tell y'all what I observed about these jurors. Okay. So the jurors, the first, on the first row, there is a white male. He's a little older. And then there's a white male who's younger, who's next to him. They are not buying the defense's case at all. That's the one I was telling y'all earlier, would not even look at the defense. He was turned around, trying to turn around. He was turned around the entire trial. I mean, he was turned this way. I watched the jurors when they walked in to see if they looked at the defense or, nobody looked towards the defense except, I take that back. There was one person, but at least 3 of the jurors, and then there's an older Black female lady. I believe she's 76 years old. That woman is checked out. I mean, when I say she is checked out, she wasn't taking no notes. I saw her at one point. She was napping. Her head was down like that. She was looking at her notepad, but it wasn't like she was taking notes. It was like she was just kind of thumbing through it. She was like, when the hell is this going to be over with? I mean, that lady is checked out. When people like that, to me, it suggests that they have made up their mind. Now, I don't know which way she's made up her mind, but that lady knows, her mind is made up. And she's just waiting for this shit to be over with. That's my humble opinion. So, of course, I could be 1,000% wrong, but she just seemed checked out. Let's see who else. There were a couple of people who were kind of obscure. Then there were the people who are the alternate jurors, and they didn't seem too invested one way or the other. Now, There were two jurors who appeared to me to be very much I don't want to say friendly because of course they weren't doing anything obvious, but they seemed to be paying very close attention to what the defense was saying. One lady, black lady with the Gryffindor shirt on, I saw her smiling when when Steele was doing his cross examination. She was looking at that Steele, kind of looking at the defense, and she was smiling. And Steele was doing a good job. He was being very effective. And I was like, interesting. During the second cross examination with Agnifilio, she seemed, to be paying very much paying attention. And she seemed to be like a lot of the jurors have a poker face, no smiling. They're just kind of, I'm here. I got to be here. But this lady definitely seems to have a more pleasant expression. That might just be her normal countenance. That's the way she is every day. But it definitely came through, and it definitely seemed different from her peers on the jury. So, but I think the defense is going to have a very, very tough road because even though some of the cross examination was very good, Brian Steele did an excellent job. Um, they made some good points about the whole arson thing, but I heard somebody describe it like this. When there's a steady drip, the prosecutors are steady dripping evidence and facts. I mean, it's just like a steady drip, 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 drip. And the defense has like a drip every 10 times. So the prosecution has 100 drips, the defense has 10. And at the end of the day, I don't know if that's going to convince the jurors that there's some doubt here. Wearing a Harry Potter t-shirt to a courtroom is why the jurors were dressed pretty casually. Somebody was asking how many men jurors. There are eight men, 4 women. Yep, 8 men, 4 women. There was one juror who's a black male, second row. He also seemed, I hate to use the word friendly. It's not the right word, but I don't know what the right word is. Partial, inclined, maybe, to the defense. So, yeah. Am I wrong in saying because it's a RICO charge, he cannot be pardoned if found guilty in Samaria? No, honey. It's actually quite the opposite. Because this is a federal offense, oops, I'm sorry. I'm messing up my phone. Because it's a federal offense, that's the one thing Trump can pardon him for. So yes, he can absolutely be pardoned by Trump for this federal offense. Y'all, I'm knocking my phone over. Let me get it up. Okay. Brian Steele was calm, respectful. My thought. Yeah, Brian Steele was really good. And I don't know if you heard me earlier, Lawless, but I was saying his cross-examination, he was not using a lot of lot of notes or anything. Hold on one second, y'all. My daughter is on her way to my hotel. Are y'all still there? Oh my gosh, did I mess it up? Okay, hold on one second. Let me just text my daughter and let her know what my hotel room number is. She is coming in from Okay. So I just sent her a text. She's coming in from Boston. Becca, do you know how many witnesses are left? So today, at the end of the day, the prosecution said they are ahead of schedule, and they didn't think it was going. They thought they would be finished by the end of the second week in June. They didn't think it was going to take 6 more weeks. So the judge, they said they should start talking about the request to charge. Those are the jury instructions. And so before the case concludes, the before the case concludes, the attorneys and the judge will have what's called a charge conference. And at the charge conference, they go through the proposed jury instructions, because the defense get to propose instructions, the prosecutors get to propose instructions, and the judges will also propose instructions. They'll kind of decide, you know, somebody should have suggested this. So he was talking about doing that sooner rather than later. Tisha Love, does Diddy have witnesses? So today in court, the prosecution said that Diddy had a long witness list, but they wanted to know from the defense, are you really going to call all these people? Is it going to be a short defense, or if it's going to be a long one? And so the defense didn't respond to that, but they were asking that question. I suspect it's going to be pretty short. Yeah, I suspect their defense is going to be pretty short. The $1 million question is whether don't forget the line fight story. Lawless, what do you mean? Hayes says you shouldn't make someone that age a juror. You know, I don't know if she's just, I have a feeling that she heard, oh yeah, because I did hear this story that oh, hold on, let me respond to my daughter. 1 second, guys. Okay. I had to send her the address. So I heard this story. The person didn't say which jurors, but I suspect it was this older lady. They said that when Cassie testified that first day, that the juror turned to the male juror next to her and said that was hard to hear, and wiped, tears from her face. So that tells you how difficult it's going to be. Lux, what about the sex trafficking charges? Oh. So the sex trafficking charge, okay, which of this testimony goes to the sex trafficking? So the government is trying to show the coercion part, that Cassie was not doing this because she enjoyed it, because she wanted to be involved in freak offs. They're trying to show that she was forced to engage in the freak offs. So that's why the testimony from Dante today was important, because they were showing that she was being forced. His testimony that Cassie said she didn't want to do the freak off, she was just doing it because he wanted her to. That's how they show that she was forced to do this. Oh yeah. Okay, so Lawless was asking me about the fight this morning. So y'all, this is my first time coming to this trial, and I paid somebody to stand in line for me. And they only allow 14 people from the public to go inside the courtroom, and they allow 21 people from the press to go inside the courtroom. And I wanted to be inside the courtroom. So you can go into an overflow courtroom. So they do have monitors set up in other courtrooms, and you can go into overflow. I didn't want to go into overflow. That if I did, so be it. But I really wanted to be inside the courtroom. So the way to do that, I was told, is that you've got to be in line like overnight. And I couldn't do that. I couldn't be in line overnight. That just, that just wasn't going to happen. So I paid someone to stand in. It says I'm paused. Hey guys on TikTok, am I paused? Let me know if I'm paused or not. Okay, so people are saying no. Hey, if y'all are new here, please give me a follow so you can find this live again. Please keep tapping. Oh my God, I'm almost at 300,000. That's the most I've ever had. And thank you all for the gifts. I appreciate it. But back to the story. So I couldn't stand in line overnight. So I paid somebody. So I paid this guy to stand in line for me overnight. He started standing in line at about 6:45, and I got there to relieve him at 6:45. So I paid him for 12 hours. So when I get there this morning, they're like 10 people in front of me. And then and there are a bunch of people behind me. There's a long line behind me. So we're standing out there, and this man walks up. He's a white guy, and he has a 2x4 in his hand. So he has this 2x4 in his hand, and I'm looking like, what's going on? What the hell is going on? Now my guy who stood in line for me, he's a big guy. He's a big, tall, guy. He looks like somebody you don't mess with, that you don't mess around with. And he kind of told me, he was like, just stay over there. And I was like, okay. So this guy comes over with this 2x4, and he's kind of talking shit to everybody in the line. And then there's this lady who's out there. They get into it. So they start talking shit to each other. And I was told that these two have been kind of beefing in the past. So, look at that. I look cool. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank y'all for the gifts. Thank you, Foodie, for real, for those sunglasses. So I was told that they have been beefing before. And so they're like going at it with each other. They're going back and forth. I think I videotaped some of it. I may make a video about it. So they're going back and forth. He got his thing, and he swings the big stick, the big 2x4 that he had. So he swings it. He hit something because I heard a noise, like maybe a pole or something, but he didn't hit a person. So when he swings the stick and he hits the pole or whatever, there's a loud outcry from everybody. And somebody's like, call the police, get security, call police. So here comes a U.S. Marshal. So the U.S. Marshal comes over, and he's like screaming at the guy, telling him to leave and all of that. The guy isn't leaving. Then a few minutes later, here comes the New York Police Department. So they come and they arrest him. They arrest him and they take him away. And then other people in the line, like the guy behind me and the guy who was standing in line for me, they're like having some kind of beef. And the guy who's standing in line with me, he tells the guy behind me, he was like, you're not going to be in this line tonight. Your ass won't be in this line tonight. I guarantee you won't be in this line tonight. And I'm like, oh. And the guy was like, what you mean? I'm like, what you mean I'm not going to be in this line? What you going to do? What you mean? So I don't know what actually happened. But that's what I saw. Anybody still over here on the other YouTube? Anybody still there? Diddy body language. Okay, Diddy's body language. Diddy was still behaving like he's in control. So I don't know if a lot of y'all may not have been here when I first came on, but when I first walked into the courtroom this morning, Diddy came out there waving at me. Now I said he was waving at me because I do feel like he was like looking at me, like we made eye contact, and he was waving at me. And he was, and then he did like this. He made a heart, and and the girl next to me was like, um, she was like, "Do you know this? Do you know Diddy?" And I was like, "No, ma'am, I don't know Diddy. I do not know him. I don't know why he's doing that." But throughout the trial, he never seemed defeated. He was very engaged. He was, hold on one second. This is my daughter. Hold on. Hey, Sona.
Hi, Mom. I'm in the lobby. Where do I need a hotel card to get up in the elevator?
Nope. You can just come right on up to the 17th floor.
Okay.
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 Okay. I'm sorry. I'm back. Tell me if I'm still paused. Tell me. That was my daughter calling. A Sola. I can't say it, but yeah, that was my daughter. But I'm gonna have to get off soon because she is on her way to my room. So she has made it here from Boston. Oh, hi, Cowgirl Creek. Okay, so y'all are still there. Thank you. But yeah, Diddy, he didn't seem defeated. He was very engaged. He was writing notes. He was, talking to his attorneys before his attorneys sat down from their cross-examination. They went and consulted him. Yeah, and when he came into the courtroom and he saw his family, when he saw his mom, he was like saying something to them, smiling. He was turning around every now and then, looking at the people behind him, kind of talking to them, which is very, very unusual. Usually in court, they will not allow you, if you're in custody, they will not allow you to talk to people in the courtroom. But they seem very lax about it. Oh yes, this was something else. Oh my gosh, I forgot about this. So at the end of the day, hold on one second, guys. Let me let my daughter in.
Hi, Mom. You are not on live right now, are you?
Why are you so wet?
Because it's pouring raining up there.
Is it pouring down?
Yes.
Oh no! I brought 2 umbrellas.
Oh, okay. That's good. I didn't even think about it.
Come say hello. You want to come say hello?
No.
My kids refuse to be on TikTok, anything at all. You don't want to say hi? I talk about you all the time.
To strangers?
Yeah, to strangers.
You got me food?
Oh, look, there's some food over there.
Okay.
No, you see it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You just ordered it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're not going to come say hi?
No, I'm saying hi to these strangers?
Yeah, 2,400 strangers. And then
my.
How many over here? Then the people on YouTube. 8 people on YouTube.
That's a lot of strangers.
But I'm going to get off soon. Okay, but I wanted to tell y'all this. So at the end of the day, Diddy's attorney made another motion, and he gave a long speech about this. He gave a long. They said they're not strangers, Sona.
Okay.
Okay, my name on YouTube, guys, is I'm a Lawyer in Real Life. So I use the same name on all my social media. So please go to YouTube. I am building my YouTube, and I am trying to be more consistent on YouTube. So please go give me a follow over there. And there are people who are actually watching me on the YouTube channel. So I'm on both. I'm on YouTube and I'm also on TikTok. Thank you for the gifts. Thank you. So no, some of my they said welcome to New York City.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so at the end of the day, Diddy's attorney, he made a motion, but the judge said he needs to put it in writing. He said that they have been hindered by the fact that Diddy, not Brian Steele, it was Mark Agnafilio. Ag, Ag, I know I'm pronouncing it wrong, but y'all know who I'm talking about. He made a motion that the court require the U.S. Marshals to make Diddy available to them until 10 o'clock every night. So when you're in custody, they have they have some pretty strict rules about where you need to be and when you need to be there. So they are only able, according to him, they're only able to talk to Diddy up until 5 o'clock. And he says, oh, okay, easy. Is it Danielle Bess? Okay, Danielle. Okay, maybe it's Danielle Bess on YouTube. I thought it was I'm a lawyer in real life. So his attorney said we need more time with Diddy. He's in custody. He's not able to help us prepare for his case, and that's causing delays. And so we want you to order the marshals to let us have access to him every day until 10 o'clock. And he said there is a room downstairs in the federal courthouse that they could use. And so the judge was like, I don't know if I can tell the marshals to do that, but put it in a motion. I'll talk with the marshals. I'll see what I can do. But I can tell you, I doubt they're going to do that. The marshals are not going to they're not going to want to stay at the courthouse until 10 o'clock with Diddy. I mean, Diddy has to get back to the where he's being held in custody. That's not going to work. That's not going to work. And then somebody was asking about how many attorneys he had in the courtroom. He had a lot of attorneys in the courtroom. There were three rows. Wait, no, there were 2 rows of Diddy attorneys. There were 2 rows of his attorneys on the side, and there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there were 12 people in those 2 rows. Then there were 3 white guys on the side who were with his team. Then there were 2 men, a young black guy and a young white guy who were with his team. So he had a lot of attorneys in that courtroom. One person I thought was appellate counsel because I noticed that he was taking notes and then he was passing something to the other attorneys, and I don't know, I just got the impression he was appellate counsel. But he had a lot of attorneys, and there are 6 white women who are bringing this case. Now, I don't want to offend anyone, but I need to say this, and I think I'm going to do a video about this. I come from Metro Atlanta. There is no circumstance in Metro Atlanta where you're going to see an all-white female prosecution team. And what popped into my head was the 6 white women against Diddy. And it looked, the look of it is to me, it didn't sit well. And I don't know if it was intentional that they wanted all women on this team and all white women on this team, but I don't know. It didn't come across well for me. In Metro Atlanta, it would never, ever fly. You would have jurors who would be ready to do jury nullification just because of something like this. So I thought that was really interesting. But those women were very prepared. Like you could tell that they had their questions like written out, whereas the Brian Steele, he didn't have written questions. He had some notes on a piece of paper that he only opened up occasionally, but they were prepared. But it is these 6 white women who are prosecuting this guy, so that does play into this narrative that, oh, these black men are being prosecuted. These rich black men are being prosecuted. How did Brian Steele do today? Brian Steele was great. And Brian Steele is a very nice person. He is a very nice guy. He was very nice to me today. Don't know me from Adam. Welcome to New York. Thank you, Carrie Ann. 99% conviction rate. Yep. Yes, it's Nash again tomorrow. Yes. So Nash did not finish his cross. They did not finish his cross. Hopefully this guy gets it together tonight, because he was kind of wasting our time. Mike has to be 10 million plus on his defense. Yeah. It's a lot. I don't know how much it is, but he has spent millions already. Yes, Cowgirl Cree, the optics. Yes. Oh my goodness. Okay, if you're from Atlanta, you may know this person I'm about to talk about. Do y'all remember Sylvia from the YSL trial? Sylvia, I think they called her Infamous Sylvia. She got in trouble one time because of some information she released. So Sylvia is here. Sylvia is here. Sylvia is here. In fact, I was supposed to email her tonight. She's releasing transcripts every night. Yes, Sylvia, I met her for the first time today and love Sylvia. We hit it off right away. She helped me get to the train when I was coming back tonight to my hotel. Yeah, so Sylvia is here. She said this is what she does. So I appreciated meeting her for the first time. And there was one other person from Georgia, but I can't remember his name. And he said he was from some hip hop magazine. Well, guys, I'm going to get to 400,000 and I'm going to wrap it up, because my baby girl is here. And she, of all my children, needs to have my undivided attention.
What are you talking about? It's not for the cameras.
Oh, that's not true.
No, that's not true.
Yes, it is. She needs my undivided attention. Michael Lawless is asking, do they allow for electronics? No. No electronics. So I asked the U.S. Marshal, I was like, hey, I'm an attorney and I have a blue card. And he was like, what's a blue card? And I was like, when the Northern District of Georgia, the attorneys have blue cards, and it allows us to take in our phones and our electronics. And he said, hey, cousin, hey, Cookie, are you really my cousin? But he said that ordinarily, he said that attorneys can bring in their electronics, but for the Diddy trial, you cannot. But he said, normally you can. If you're an attorney and you have one of the cards, he said their card is beige. In your professional opinion, what do you think about his chances? I think his chances are slim. I think it's very, very unlikely that he's not going to be convicted on at least one or two of those charges. And so we're talking about, is he going to do 15 years or is he going to do life? Because if he's convicted on one or two, we're talking about at least 15 years. If he's convicted on all of them, we're talking about life. So, thank you guys. I'm at 400,000. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, I have enjoyed this tonight. I will be back tomorrow.
What?
Huh? Yeah, I'm going to the trial. I'm going to the trial tomorrow. So I'll be back tomorrow at some point. Y'all hear her? So I will be back tomorrow. So thank you guys over on YouTube. Hayes, Cowgirl Creed, Lawless. I appreciate you guys coming over to YouTube to support me. And I'll be back tomorrow. So we will talk. And I will. I'm going to try to do some more videos. I was just writing stuff down when I was in a courtroom. Videos I wanted to do because there was so much stuff going on. Oh my gosh. Um, let's see. I'm trying to see what else. Well, that's about it for tonight. So good night, guys. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Good night, guys, over here. I'll see you tomorrow.